All right, how is everybody doing? My name is Todd Richards, and we have Darko and Steve Hall. We're all with the County Freedom Coalition, and we decided to pull out our state ballot information blue book. Everybody get one of these things. There's a lot of interesting information that's put in there, and we're just going to kind of go through this and talk about what each of us feels about what's coming up on this November ballot. So, without further ado, the first one is the D. It is the new 23rd Judicial District judges. So, when I see this, when I just see the yes, a vote yes for Amendment D directs the governor. And that's, to me, that's scary. The governor gets to pick who gets to be in that judge. And I don't like that. And I don't know if there's a way around that. I don't know if that's one of the things that he says, this is who I want to get, like they do the Supreme Court, or, it's just a judge. And like federal ways, the federal part of it is, the president picks the judges to fill those spots, and that's the perks of being in that position. So when I see that, I see no, but there has to be a new judge picked for it anyway. So I think people are going to vote yes, and people are going to vote no. So no matter which one is done, the judge has still got to go in there. So,
Todd, quick question here: do we know roughly the 18th and 23rd judicial district boundaries or map? Do we know where this is in the state?
No, everything's been redrawn. Let me see if I can pull it up. I know everything's been redrawn and moved around, and it's just seems to be a mess. Let's see.
My fear on this one, and I'll just kind of chime in, is my fear is that, like you said, the governor gets to assign judges, and if this is an area that's, let's say, homogenized in their views on the role of a judge and the way they want to handle prosecution of cases in their district, then it's not such a big deal. But if this is something where the reason it's split is maybe people have different opinions to begin with, then having the governor come in and choose your judges for you doesn't feel right.
I agree with that, Barco. There are systems in place to replace and even add 2 judges. Okay. There's an argument where it lists the argument against D. There is a vacant office or vacant seat process already outlined. I get real nervous when they're putting an amendment to the Colorado Constitution on a one-off type thing. And so I agree with you. I'm very nervous about this. I just think we ought to let it go as it should go.
And I just pulled up a map here, and it looks like 18th district, from which it sounds like the 23rd was created, includes Arapahoe County, Douglas, Elbert, and Lincoln. And I wish I had a map of where the 23rd is. Is the 23rd Elbert and Lincoln, or is the 23rd Arapahoe or Douglas?
Right. Yeah, I haven't seen a map yet that shows where the new 23rd. So they must have split that big, because that's a pretty big district. The 18th is huge.
Right. That's where John Cook was seated as a senator, included part of that, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. And that's what the hubbub is about the gentleman that resigned and flipped parties. And it does include a sliver of Weld County. So it's kind of overlays a bunch.
Yeah, I can't see a new map of the 23rd district. It doesn't show, because it's probably not in, but 17th, 1st, 2nd, 17th, 18th, 19th. Yeah, I can't find a map itself to give a good view of it. So I don't know. I just see that, you know, the governor. I mean, that's written right there. The directs the governor to reassign judges from the existing 18th to the new 23rd. So it has to be something in the 18th district. They're probably going to split that up because of the size of that Douglas County and Arapahoe County. They're probably going to move those to make them the 23rd district fall under those things there. So I still just don't like, you know, the governor gets to reassign the judges, but that's the good thing about being the governor at the time. You know, you win. That's the I can't even think. That's the perks of winning. That's why votes matter. That's why voting matters. So
Well, that's true, Todd, except for right now, he can't do that. They have to add the amendment to the Constitution, Amendment D, in order for him to fill it quickly, and he would nominate it right away. If not, it goes into the normal process.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one because I think there's a lot of other moving parts that are in there that that we you know, and I'm sure this is one of those moving parts that has to happen. So
and I don't like the idea of, you know, stalling out a judicial process, but I also don't feel super informed on this one. But, you know, with the fact that there's no even proposed map for the 23rd, it's really hard for me to say that, you know, from Erie, I can tell people in that district who their judges should be. You know what I mean? Like, so I just have to go with, you know, what Steve was saying. It's just default to no, rather than take a risk and mess with the Constitution.
I agree.
yeah, there's nothing even in the back of the book summary. It doesn't even break anything down on where it's gonna be. So unfortunately,
I have seen a breakout of that somewhere, and I'll find it again and forward it to you guys, and because it's really almost like modern art. You know? Yeah. So
yeah.
I'll see if I can find that somewhere.
All right, and then I'll just put it up on our Facebook page when we get a
Yes.
hold of it, so we can do
Yes.
it that way. So
That'd be great.
all right. So are we all pretty much saying no on that? Default to no.
I'm leaning no. I'm open to more information changing my mind just because I don't feel fully informed. But if I had to vote at this moment, it would be no.
Yeah, and I'm leaning no because I am very hesitant about amending the Constitution for a one-time. So theoretically, it's a one-time deal when there's already processes in place that would take care of that. That's in addition to some other things. I'm no for that.
Right. All right. Well, that was the easy one. I thought that would be a little bit harder than that. Ballot. E. Extend homestead exemption to Gold Star spouses. Well, I'm retired military, and that's a big fat yes. So, and if you don't like it, I'll come over and whoop your ass later. So.
Well, I'm not retired. I'm not retired, and I wasn't military, but I am all for this. I am a guy that typically is against most programs, so to speak.
Right.
But not this one. Not this one. They're underpaid to begin with. They're underappreciated in retirement, and they're underappreciated in service, as far as in my beliefs.
Right.
Yeah, and I agree with you guys. I'm actually a yes on this one as well. And I'd say the thing that tips it for me, Steve, to your point about programs, is this isn't giving somebody else's money to these people. This is actually the government coming in and saying, we won't tax you. We won't take your money,
right.
You know, to help you out. So I'm much more sympathetic to those kinds of benefits where it's actually the government not taking versus taking somebody else's money and then turning around and giving it to you.
Awesome. Agreed, I think.
Yeah, easy one there. So F, change to charitable gaming operations. There shall be amendment to the Colorado Constitution concerning the conduct of charitable gaming activities and in connection therewith, allowing managers to operate to be paid and repealing the required period of charitable organizations continuous existence before obtaining a charitable gaming license. And if I remember correctly, it is just going to reduce the time that they have to be an organization.
I think there's a little more to it. I think also now the employees can be paid, whereas with this proposed change, employees could be paid versus in the present, they cannot be paid.
Right. And it moves it from or reduces it from the 5 years to 3 years that the organization must operate. So I think that's, I mean, a charitable organization, some of them they're just running by the skin of their teeth most of the time and relying on a lot of charitable contributions coming in. And I don't have a problem with those organizations running bingo. And I think that moving it from 5 to 3 helps out a lot. So,
I'm kind of on both sides of the fence here. I'm all for helping charitable contributions, but I don't see in any of the documentation that this isn't just going to be ran as a for-profit business that is availed possibly certain. It's a for-profit business that's running a charitable contribution bingo thing for a C4 or something like this. So if you've got, say, $100 in donations, they'll take maybe 40 to 50% off the top as expense to put it on, or maybe more, and then deduct down, and it doesn't end up, I mean, it's $100 given is not $100 in the charity pocket. That's one of the reasons I support charity organizations doing their own thing, whether it be annual dinners or bringing goods in. So I'm not saying that this is a for-profit thing that is being ran by us, but most of these get very little or no money directly back to the charity that I have dealt with.
I'm leaning no, because I think it's similar to what you were saying, Steve, where I feel like what's missing is a cap of what percentage could be paid out as compensation. Mm-hmm. Because let's say the three of us had a nonprofit and we organized this event and we agreed to pay out 100% of what we make as income to ourselves for hosting it. There's also no limitation that the workers who are getting paid are not members or officers of that organization. Now, I personally don't know how profitable bingo or raffles can be, so I don't want to go as far as to say that it could be used, abused. But I do feel like one of those two things would have swayed me in favor of it, but I'm leaning towards no.
Yeah, it just says for charitable branches, lodges, chapters of national or state organizations, religious, charitable, labor, fraternal, educational, volunteer firefighters, or veterans organizations, political parties, and this Colorado State Fair Authority.
Yeah, and also think about, let's say, and again, I know it's not going to be used like this, but in the way it's written, I don't see anything to prevent it. Let's say we're running for office and, we take political donations, and then we turn around and pay that out as income, right?
Yeah, because it
So
it is.
it feels a little bit open for abuse.
Yeah, it says political parties, so it does show that in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all that is doing is just all this is doing is changing it from 5 years to 3 years and paying the workers.
And not they say explicitly they don't require to pay the workers,
Right.
but you can pay the workers, and after the first year there's no limit on how much.
Right.
And it doesn't
Yep.
say anything about who those workers can or cannot be.
Right.
Correct. Yeah. They might be listed as workers, but they're not doing any work at all.
Maybe.
Well, so this is a next one, FF, the Healthy School Meals for All. When you go through and you read this, increase of over, what is that, $100 million annually. And you have to have a federal income tax of $300,000. That's the limit. $300,000, and you can't afford to have school lunch for your kid. I really don't.
Well, I think the $300,000
Oh, yeah.
is where they're saying,
Yes, they're going to increase taxes at $300,000. Yeah.
right. And so here's the deal. This is all, there's a federal free and reduced lunch program
Oh, yeah.
that's a major contributor to public schools. That I was on when I was on the board at D6. That is a huge thing, and there was never anybody that was turned away that couldn't, even if it was 10 cents. Every kid was fed and got that free or reduced lunch. So I'm not sure what they're trying to. I'm really not sure what they're trying to do here, other than find a way to supplement or reduce the amount that they're paying out of one fund by another one. I don't know, but it just doesn't show.
Yeah, and even in the tables back here, it's, you just look at it and it's just, it seems like it's the one thing that I don't like about this state is the pot of money is just one big pot of money, and they're just adding money to the pot, and
Right.
we don't really know if that money's really going to healthy for school kids for the meals. So if the money's coming in for meals, the money should be going out for meals. But I know that they just put that into the general fund, and then they just use the money in the general fund to do whatever they please with. So I don't like that.
Exactly. It sounds crass. It sounds mean, but that's what they mean it to draw. This is very carefully crafted, just as all the mill levy overrides are crafted to tax voters, to pull on your heartstrings, because it's all for the kiddos, right?
Oh yeah.
And in the meantime, it's not. I'm just saying, if it was that big a deal, why would we have directors making 200,000+ a year
Right.
in school districts and stuff, right? Superintendents 300,000 a year. It ain't for the kids. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and even bullet point number 2 on the first page says increase wages or provide stipends for employees who prepare and serve school meals.
Right.
And then even it has, and then bullet point number 3 is, receive training, equipment, technical assistance via a nonprofit organization. So it also implies hiring nonprofits who are going to help administer and offer this thing. And on page 2, it clearly says, or sorry, not page 2. Gosh, this thing is so long. On page 24, it calls out that Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. Is it page 24? This thing's extremely long, but I saw somewhere. Oh yeah. Sorry. Page 21 at the bottom. 40% of all Colorado students in kindergarten through 12th grade already qualify for this. So
Right.
really what you're talking about is, introducing a progressive tax structure on the 300 plus K earners to buy lunches for people who have already been deemed to not qualify for free or assisted school lunches. Meanwhile, also increasing wages for employees and, getting nonprofits involved to help execute this program and source this food and whatnot. So to me, this is probably the strongest no I have. Other than the title of it, I fundamentally disagree with the entirety of this thing on many different fronts.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah. When you flip back there and look at all this stuff back, there's pages and pages and pages for that, and some of them are just 2 pages and they're done.
If
But
it
this
was
one,
simply like, increase state sales tax by X% to be solely used for buying food for children, like that's a very different argument. This is
dollar in, dollar out, dollar
Yeah,
in, dollar out.
exactly. And any amount unspent to be returned to taxpayers. It could have been written in a paragraph, and I think it would have a much higher chance of passing.
I think so too.
One thing I was thinking we maybe could do for fun is take a guess as to whether these would pass or not as we go through. What do you guys think on this one? Do you think it'll pass?
I bet it will. Unfortunately, because people are gonna, they're gonna read that and go, "We got to feed the kids. We got to feed the kids. These poor kids, they need to be fed." Well, they're already qualifying. It's like you said, on page 20, I think it was 21.
Yeah, except it's these non-poor kids need to be fed.
Yeah, and when you look at it, it's like they're bringing all these other people in, and all these other people are going to be getting paid for doing this. These nonprofits and things like that are going to be getting monies for this, and it's just like
I think the Colorado voters, I have a little more faith. I think they're going to reject this, and I think they're going to reject it on the basis of complexity. It's just not going to smell right to them, and they'll see that there's 7 or 8 pages of just text, and it shouldn't be this complicated to explain an initiative like this.
Yeah. I think if it had been a little more of a normal year, but with the way that our tax money is currently being pumped out of DC everywhere in the world, and the green energy and all of this stuff that we have to pay for, right? I think they're going to reject it. I think they will, because Colorado's economy isn't as great as what they would have you put forward.
Right.
Should we retroactively just touch on the ones prior and see
Sure.
what you guys think?
Yeah.
Do you think the judges one will pass or not pass?
Probably not. No.
I don't think it will.
Okay. I'm torn on that one. I could just see people be like, "Oh, what's the harm? Like, let's keep government moving." So I'm gonna guess yes on that one.
Okay.
Not to try to be a contrarian on purpose. I think extending the homestead exemption is gonna pass.
Yep.
I do. Yeah.
It'll probably pass very, very big.
I think so.
I think the charitable gaming one is also going to pass. People are going to read it as to be innocent, and I don't think they're going to look at the fine print the way we did.
Yep.
I agree.
Yep. The average or low information voter is going to look at that and go, "Yeah, that's great. That's great. Let's raise
nonprofits. Oh, bingo raffles. That sounds fun.
Yep.
They can make a little money with it. Good for them."
Yep.
Yeah, and how should somebody work at bingo for free, right?
Exactly. Exactly. GG, add tax information table to petitions and ballots. There shall be a change to the Colorado revised statutes requiring that the ballot title and fiscal summary for any ballot initiative that increases or decreases state income tax rates shall include a table showing the average tax rate for tax filers in different income categories. I think it sounds fantastic, but that is another, I think that's another office in the government that's going to have to, I mean, that is a huge, I think that's just a gigantic undertaking to have to put all this information on there and print it up and and put all that on there. And of course, who knows if it's actually going to be true or not. But I just don't see this being truthful. You know, they're just going to put some mumbo jumbo on the, and then once again, it's that's about a 2-pager back here, isn't it? 3 pages.
Yeah,
and I think
it's about a page and a half.
Yeah, about a page and a half. I just don't see. Yeah, see, adds unnecessary and complexity and cost to statewide printed ballots, and that's all I needed to hear. So.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Secretary of State's IT costs. It looks like Secretary of State's workload, Department of Law's workload, and legislative department's workload. And then also it punishes the county clerks who have to make sure this gets included on the ballots and printed ballots and prints right and it's legible.
Right.
So, yeah.
Our ballots are going to be this big.
I think this is a direct result of, you know, the counterpart of 121, which is the state income tax reduction from last time.
Right.
And I think they saw, you know, voters approve it. And I think it scared somebody into realizing that maybe Colorado voters like low taxes. And so my gut tells me this is a reaction to that, to try and say, hey, hang on a second. Somebody who makes, you know, 10 million a year, even though there's a handful of them in the state, they're getting a much bigger tax cut than you are. You're just getting pennies on this stuff.
Yeah.
But when you actually, so I think it's an attempt to try to dissuade people from tax cuts. But the thing that people sometimes forget to realize is that there's a whole lot of more people in those lower income tax brackets. And so the aggregated total benefit to the lower class is actually greater than the upper class, even though as an individual, you might benefit more at the upper class. But then also people forget to point out that those people at the upper end pay a hell of a lot more per person than the lower end, but they don't use government services, you know, disproportionately more to justify that. So I'm a strong no on this one too, due to the bureaucracy, but also due to the intent of it. I think is to try and fool people into voting no on something that's good for them.
Right.
Okay. Well, I am just the opposite, and I'll tell you why. I don't think people understand let me put it this way. People don't understand what all their tax dollar goes for. And one of those would quantify that if they're doing it for lowering a tax, doing this, and technically in the next one it's going to be for fees, because that's the big thing at this point. Even with counties such as Weld County, who is mandated to balance the budget and keep their taxes low, they just add fees. And that's what Denver has done. They just added fees. And so this is going to have to talk to in regard to the total state budget down to all of it. I don't think it's that big of an encumbrance on the government, because they already know what they're doing and how much they cost. It's not news to them. They can forecast it. and they're trying, anything like this is trying to subjugate or um, what am I trying to say? Sub is trying to decrease the effectiveness of Tabor.
Yes.
And if we don't stand for Tabor, we're going to lose it, because people have to understand how that works, see how it works, and protect how it works.
Right.
Steve, let me just maybe ask a clarifying question. So we're talking about GG here. My understanding was that from the first sentence in the summary is that for any citizen initiated measure. So the key word here for me is citizen initiated. That changes, and it strictly talks about the state income tax rate. So I don't see this as applying to anything other than the state income tax rate. And it's citizen initiated. So it definitely feels kind of very targeted here against whomever brought the prior reduction in the state income tax.
I'm sorry, I flipped over and I grabbed 2 pages of the same deal, and I was in 121. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I apologize.
Oh, okay, great. So yeah, so GG, maybe Steve, if you could provide your opinion on that one.
The GG is basically, if we say yes, that if it's an initiative sponsored by someone from the public, right, then the state has to furnish how it will affect it, right, in and out.
And just to be clear, it's only state income tax rates. It does not affect any other types of initiatives.
But state income tax rates are directly correlatable to Tabor, because that impacts Tabor. Okay, because those are state income tax dollars. I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure on. After I got on the right page here, I can't give you an honest opinion. I've got to do some deeper digging. If it affects Tabor, I'm against it.
Yeah, and maybe I can help with a basic understanding, as others might also be confused. If you look at the bottom of 28, page 28, that table 1 is meant to serve as an example. So if you ever put an initiative to reduce or increase the state income tax rate, you have to provide that table filled in for your initiative. And so that goes back to my earlier point of, I think it's intended to make the numbers at the bottom of that table look big, to kind of make people potentially feel a little bit vengeful and say, well, I don't want to approve this state income tax reduction because somebody over there benefits a lot more than I do.
Yeah, and that could very well be true. I'm not comfortable going either way. I've got to align it with Tabor and see, and just go from there.
Should we move on to 121, Todd?
Yeah, I think we already got Steve's his opinion on 121, which is interesting because.
Well, so actually, if I look at this, I was looking at the writings and not paying attention to 121. I was looking at the arguments for Proposition 121. I had flipped over and just looked right straight to the arguments. I'm a yes on this when I get it in the correlation with the 121 page. But I went right by the title page and right down and didn't pay attention to 121 and just looked for arguments for, arguments against.
What's your take on 121, Todd?
So I lived in Texas for a while, and they had no state income tax, or they had no state income tax. And anytime that you reduce state income tax, it's great because the money goes into your pocket and you choose to do with it what you want, which is
Or it
great.
never leaves your pocket, to be a little more precise.
Well, right.
Right.
But
Right.
the government is still going to get their taxes that they need to run their, to run the budget for the state, no matter where that money's going to come from. So if they have to increase a fee on gasoline or increase the fee on, who knows, buying soda out of a soda machine, they're going to increase some fee somewhere along the line, automobile registration, or it's going to be, they're still going to get those taxes that they need to run the government. So yeah, it's great. They're going to reduce it. What is that? 15% from 55 to 40. I just think the tax is going to come from someplace else. I like the fact that you're going to get more money in your paycheck and you can hang on to that and do with it, with what you want. But I don't know. That's a tough one because the money's going to
go around. It dropped 0.1, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
I think it used to be 4.65. So,
yeah.
I'm a resounding yes on this one. And the reason it's a no-brainer to me is that it states it very clearly in the arguments for 121, where the state government actually, and this is to Steve's point, due to Tabor, can only tax what it's going to spend.
Right.
And so today it technically overtaxes, which is
Oh yeah.
So now what happens is the government has to they have to take your money, then they have to do work to get your money back to you. And
Right.
so that's an added expense and cost that does not need to be incurred. And also I think that having an advertised lower percentage, now 0.15, and then if you add the 0.1 from before, hey, that's 1/4%. When a company is deciding if they want to expand in Colorado or come to Colorado, or somebody's thinking about relocating, I know 0.25 is not big, but that helps in the argument of getting someone over here. And so I would hate to over advertise our tax rate to be higher than it really is to those prospective decision makers for businesses and individuals.
I didn't even think about that. That the last couple of years we've gotten money back because they overtaxed and didn't spend it all. So
That's right.
that would reduce that return because
Right. And again,
This is
it's a small amount, but if you think about it, that money staying in the hands of that individual and the business has the ability to get put to work.
Yeah.
And in aggregate across the whole state, there's going to be some net benefit for that money working, instead of sitting in a government account, not doing anything, only to be refunded in a year.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, you'd rather have it in your bank account earning your self-interest.
Or put to work. Maybe there's a good or service that's going to benefit my company or myself or an employee. Maybe
Right.
there's a net marginal employee we can hire because of this.
Right.
Well, and one other thing I'd like to just throw in, if we don't protect Tabor and protect the balanced budget amendment and these things, they're going to go away. And in doing so, every time, if we were to vote this down, that weakens the Tabor response, and they'll come back at us a different way. This is like the long game playing the short game. I think that I agree with all the points that Darko made. A 0.1% in sales tax revenue on a Martin Marietta is huge.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Now that some of that's coming up, it's like, well, yeah, maybe that is a good idea. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think that'll probably, now that I think about that and get a little more perspective on it, I think that'll probably pass.
I think so.
I really hope so. So I'm going to be an optimist and say yes.
Well, and I think people all automatically, unfortunately, I think they automatically, when they say it's reduced, they just vote for it.
Yeah.
and even, I'm going to take this and run while I can.
Yeah, that's true. All right. 122, a very interesting one. I'm not going to read all that out of there, but some of the stuff down at the bottom, it says it would retroactively remove and reduce criminal penalties for the possession and use and sale of natural medicines.
Uh-huh.
So it would give the state to establish a regulated system for accessing psychedelic mushrooms, and if approved by regulating the state agency, additional plant-based psychedelic substances, and decriminalizing the possession and use of psychedelic mushrooms and certain plant-based psychedelic substances in Colorado for individuals aged 21 and over. My thing on this one is if you're 21 and over, you can do whatever the hell you want. If you want to just, why do we got to make everything criminal? But the only thing that I would be worried about that is it would get, just like everything else, it would get down to the kids, in middle school, those upper middle school kids and high school kids that aren't over 21. And that would cause problems.
Well, we've got a huge methamphetamine and fentanyl problem, cocaine problem in this area from Denver out.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the major artery for doing any of that. And here's the deal. The whole thing on this is they're just, psychedelic mushrooms. There's a reason why they didn't want people doing uninhibited psychedelic mushrooms. It's the same thing that happens if you start doing mescaline, if you start doing that stuff, And unfortunately, I agree with you to the degree that the person ought to be responsible enough to not impact. So let me put it this way. If we had no responsibility that it was going to cost us anything to rehabilitate that person once they get there, which is what we know on methamphetamine, fentanyl use, stuff like this, when they just kind of let it go and they increase the amount that could be held on hands and not be a felony and all of this, and we've got an explosion on it. And now we're seeing the back end of that with the state aid, with free hypodermic needles, with free injection sites, with all of this going. And I say, no, if you can't rule it yourself, and it's not, when it's it always ends up back in our laps to foot the bill for these poor people that got addicted. Now, don't misunderstand me. I have compassion for people. I have compassion for, and I support many, many organizations that help get people delivered from drug or alcohol addictions. But bottom line is, it falls in our cities, into downtown Denver, into our schools, and it's just another thing that's going to go be dealing in a junior high school hallway. And if it's legal, they're just going to be passing them through the hallway. And I don't like that. That's just mine. So I'm probably the one to the right of that, but I've seen and had to deal with the results of that over and over and over.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would be a no.
I have so many things I like about this, but I also see a number of really good criticisms and concerns, and I'm going to try and kind of state those. So First of all, I think the word psychedelic kind of has an implication that maybe comes from the 60s or 70s of,
Probably.
like, oh, psychedelic, you're going to see aliens and riot rockets. And like, it has this like idea that you have to go to the monster dose, right? Like
Yeah.
there's nothing on the gradient of using the substance except for jumping straight to, I don't know, 6 grams and exploring outer space, right? So I feel like that word's polluted, and I worry that it's gonna hurt people's opinions there. I mean, these are natural substances, but there's also stuff that's natural that can kill you, right? So like the word natural, I'm kind of like, I want to give it some credit there, but I also think you have to be very careful there.
Yeah.
I really, really wish this was 2 ballot initiatives. I wish there was one that was about regulated, supervised medicinal use, because I have heard really good stories about
I agree.
PTSD and treatment, and
I
what
agree.
dosage are you getting and who chooses that dosage, right? Like, so I feel like there's that element of it that I'm really in favor of. But then they had to also say, well, it's also decriminalized for personal possession, growing, sharing. So how much? And yes, it does say that local governments can regulate that. So I'm sure that each county will come in and say, well, how much are you allowed to carry? How much are you allowed to share? But you know, I do feel like I wish that portion was a separate initiative that could be voted on. I do think, though, that Steve, that these, it's going to sound like an interesting argument, but there's also a spectrum of drugs where meth and heroin and fentanyl are on the extreme end of like horrible, and then you might have some that are more innocent, like beer, wine, marijuana. Like they're much more tame on that spectrum of detriment and damage.
Agreed.
The one that worries me here is that today psychedelics are viewed very favorably and positively, and they're very cool. It's cool to do mushrooms, and it's been.
It was cool to do mushrooms in the 60s, dude.
Sure.
You forgot who you got here.
Through famous personalities, it's been promulgated of like, hey, I had this great experience on mushrooms, right? And so now try to really explain the nuance to somebody of, hey, well, how many grams are you doing? And are high school kids gonna be like, oh, I should go for the 1 gram experience because I don't know what I'm doing here, or they're just gonna get peer pressured into jumping to 4, 5, 6, and I've seen it go very sideways on the high end of that spectrum. So, and then the last criticism I have here is I also don't like this idea that local governments are prohibited from banning these facilities.
That's right.
I really don't like that aspect of it. So, gosh, there was a part of me that says that if this were to fail, it would come back, and I wish we could speak to the writers of this, and I would just tell them, hey, separate the medicinal value of it, prove it there, and then work it into a more broad recreational use. Maybe this is too big of a jump. I'm still not 100% sold on it. I want to vote yes, but I also see some risks in here.
Yeah.
Yep. Interesting. So was this all a 3-0 vote on this?
Gosh, if gun to my head this moment, I might be a yes, but I do want to maybe take some more time and think about it and ask myself, is this the end of it? Is this the one time we'll vote on it, or will it be back in 2 years in a better form if people reject it at this point?
Well, you think about the marijuana; it was back a couple times too. So
yeah,
right. So I think this is a good first start, but I think it's a good first offer, but I don't think it's the right first one to approve.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that, Darko. I think that they put it in and they used a bit of common sense and didn't swing for the home run, but there's not much difference between that home run and where we're at here. And I agree with, I can see see your side, what you're doing. I just, as written here, I couldn't vote for it as written.
Right. Yeah. And what worries me here is that, like, let's say you were standing 5 feet away from the entrance of a school with a big bag of mushrooms in your pocket. And if you got busted, it's like, well, I had no intention of giving them, officer. You know what I mean? So like,
Yep.
it's going to be too easy to circumvent
Yeah.
those kinds of situations.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. I think it could be written a little bit better and probably would pass. But I don't think.
Yeah, but start with proving the medicinal value of it, and
Right.
then we can talk more.
Yep.
That would be my advice to the writers of this.
Right.
Agreed.
All right. Interesting. Now the next one, another favorite one of mine. Dedicate revenue for affordable housing programs. Affordable. What is affordable?
Gosh, if you guys don't mind, I'm so charged up on this one. I'll just do it in one sentence. If you look at table number 1, somebody who would qualify for affordable housing in Boulder County makes $75,000 per year. Somebody in Alamosa County, the median, makes $53,000. So we're supposed to take tax money from citizens of somebody in Alamosa County who makes $53,000 to help subsidize housing for somebody that makes $75,000 in Boulder. It seems super regressive. It doesn't make sense to me. That alone was enough to kill it. If the state wants to make more affordable housing, focus on getting, red tape out of the way of developers, and maybe figure out some tax incentives to have developers build in areas where we need it the most. But this is convoluted and backwards, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a government program, and I don't like a government program.
Some
yeah.
no. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm with you guys.
Big no. I hope a lot of people see through all that stuff. So.
I agree.
All right. That was actually pretty. Yeah, that's crazy. That word affordable is the killer. So, all right. Another one, an interesting one. Increase allowable liquor store locations. And we talked earlier when we were getting this all set up, and I just got this in the mail. This huge packet there's all kinds of stuff that somebody went through, why there needs to be laws to modernize it. They just went, and they just went through this, why voting yes. And I get some of it where this huge craft beer here in the state. It's everywhere. You can't drive to any city and there's probably not some craft beer place in any of these little towns. So to be able to have those individuals sell that stuff at other stores would probably be a great benefit for that business. It's kind of a hard one to, when you look at the fors and against, it's like, ooh, I can see going either way, but it's just kind of hard.
See, this isn't, but I think I've never had to drive more than a few blocks to a liquor store anyway, hardly, in this state.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And what they're talking about is that there's a restriction on how many liquor stores you can have in Colorado if you're putting them in. And under a different law, you can't have more than a total of 3 of your own. Okay, within the state. Total of 4 thereafter in 2026. I would be a no in that. I think, well, free enterprise rules, right? In a legalized market. And,
correct.
I think I'd like to see what the rest of the requirements are. It's only, let's see, Any new locations are required to be at least 1,500 feet away from other retail liquor stores. So if I have one liquor store and I want to put number 2 in, I could put it in as long as it's not within 500 feet of somebody else, 1,500 feet of somebody else's.
Right. And what is a liquor store? Is a grocery store a liquor store? Because they sell it.
Well, they don't sell liquor. They don't sell hard liquor. It's under 2 separate licenses. Okay, that's the next one that we're up against of the wine law for like King Soopers.
Oh yeah, 125. Yep.
Yeah. So right now, this is just for putting another liquor store in and owning more than 4 after individually after 2026. You can own 3 now or have 3 now in Colorado and 4 after 2026. And what I see this is it's going to be, I think the real promoters behind this are King Soopers, Sam's Club, Costco, Walmart, and if they can't, if Sam's Club can't have over 3 liquor stores in this state, they're the big guys, because most individual people are localized owners, right? So it's going to the big box stores. That's who's driving this, I believe.
So help me understand, guys, because when I go to Costco, and this is a recent change, so that when I go to my Costco here, I believe it's technically in Thornton, I see they are selling beer, wine, and liquor.
Oh yeah.
Are you guys saying that Costco, I just happen to be near one of the 4 that's allowed to do so in the state? Or are they treated differently than somebody who specializes in being a liquor store?
So technically, they're not supposed to have more than 3 sites in the state right now that sell hard liquor. Liquor stores. Okay, they can still sell beer and stuff, but like, for example, right now the petitions are out. This is a citizen initiative. You've seen the petitions at King Soopers outside, people carrying. That's beer and wine. That's liquor stores. They're wanting to, I guess, basically be able to put wine, all types of beer, and liquor into all of their locations, which will kill the individual liquor store.
It'll kill the small guy.
It'll kill the small guy.
Yeah, because it says the arguments against says it's disadvantage for the small locally owned liquor stores that may not have the capacity or desire to expand, and instead will benefit the large retail liquor store chains that have more resources. So yeah, we would just put the little mom and pop stores that are, next to the, like here in town, there's a liquor store and the gas station, and we have another. I think we only have 2 now, 2 liquor stores in town. They're both tiny little mom and pop stores.
Yeah,
so,
but to Steve's earlier point, like for me, I'm leaning yes, unless I'm missing something here, because it shouldn't be government mandate that makes it so that a small business can survive. Like I'm sympathetic to the small business. I want them to win. I'm going to continue to shop there, but it feels wrong to me to block somebody who wants to be more entrepreneurial from being able to do so, and also to block a business that would be preferred by consumers.
Well, yeah, I just think that because of the big stores are just going to have the resources to do it immediately, and the mom and pops are going to have to take several years to be able to do that kind of stuff. So
I understand.
Yeah, the big.
But it also there's a graduation, right? So it goes 8, 13, 20, and obviously the big stores are going to be able to hit every one of those milestones. Whereas, small businesses probably won't, but it wouldn't be till 2037 at which it becomes unlimited for the big
Right.
guys, right?
Right.
Well, and that's where, we've seen, and normally, I'm an entrepreneurial guy, but in consumer markets, there's really no one that can compete with the big box stores as an entrepreneur. You can find a niche market and go, but if you have time to gear up, take it off, like I'm saying, in 2037. I'm okay with something like that to go along with Darko, but I'm better with it anyway. But I don't like big box stores coming into small town America and putting individual businesses out of business just because they can buy bigger.
Right.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, Steve. I don't either. I just don't know that the right solution is government intervention to prevent it. Because today it's liquor, but tomorrow that same mechanism could be used to say, well, hey, you can't buy a Tesla directly from from the company, and you can't, we're going to limit that Target can't sell groceries. Like there's states where Target is not allowed to sell food for that same kind of protective reasoning. So it creates, in my mind, a warped market when you start to put a lot of restrictions on who can and can't do what.
Well, they're both being restricted to the same thing. In other words, I could go out and put 4 liquor stores up.
Mm-hmm.
I could choose the area in Colorado to put 4 liquor stores up.
Mm-hmm.
So can they.
I understand, but I think the argument in favor of a consumer would be that if you can have, let's say, 50, then the economies of scale that come from distribution and everything could offer that product at a lower price point to the consumer. And so that money saved for the consumer is also something that should be taken into this argument. It's not like the businesses are the only beneficiaries or losers here.
Well, I agree. I agree with that. And it's a tough one for me too. I don't like having to fight against the big box stores. I mean, I don't, because they don't really care about I just don't like that.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I don't like the big guys winning either. I want the small guys to win.
Yeah. I'd like to have them have a chance anyway. Mm-hmm. Right? So
especially if the big guys start lobbying for rules that then make it even harder for the small guy to compete.
Like 124?
Yes. Or 120, 125?
I think a classic example is like the car manufacturers raising safety standards because they know it just creates and fuel economy standards, and so they're in favor of it, even though it costs them more. It makes the barrier to entry from competition that much harder. So you get this cycle where they're just staying ahead of what's possible for anyone to come in, and that's why I don't know, other than Tesla, I don't think we've had a successful U.S. auto manufacturer since the 60s, right? And even Tesla's, the jury's still out. I mean, they still aren't making too much of a profit from what I understand.
Well, I don't want to get way off, but I mean, Elon Musk, it was federal government grants that built Tesla, that also built his solar company prior to that he signed to his 2 cousins. Mm-hmm. So his entrepreneurship brought a new model to the business, but he didn't do it as necessarily an entrepreneur. It was all through government assistance.
Right. If he had tried to make yet another gas-powered car company, it probably never would have succeeded.
Correct.
Well, and it's even, yeah. I mean, its story's out now with all of the batteries burning out. So we'll see what happens.
Yep.
I don't know which one.
Anyways, sorry for the deviation. That's my fault.
Yeah, me too. But I applaud I applaud what he did. I really do.
Absolutely.
All right. 125, allow grocery stores and convenience stores to sell wine.
I'm a no for the same reason.
Yeah, this one I'm more sympathetic, and also if I had been in Colorado when beer was voted on, this is now saying conglomeration of multiple product lines. This to me is, can you build, let's call it the store, and they sell everything, right?
Yeah.
And that, how does any store in any product area compete with the store that sells everything?
Right.
Yeah, that store's called Amazon.
Well, yeah.
So gosh, but then it's so asymmetric to me that if voters wanted beer, but there's just this one thing, wine, which is, in all intents and purposes, preference to beer. It's weird that forces you to go to another store. So maybe it's the line still worth fighting, but I don't know. Gosh, I guess gun to my head, I think I would vote yes on this one and normalize it, but maybe I need to think about it more.
Yeah, that's the the beer creeped into the grocery stores, and now the wine's going to creep into the grocery stores, and then hard liquor will creep into the grocery stores, and then before you know it, 5 years down the road,
fallback.
Yeah, marijuana will creep into the grocery stores, and
yeah, you know what? I'm gonna hold the line here and say no on 125, and here's why. Here's the thought that just sold me on it. When you see a group of kids walk into a liquor store, something's wrong with that picture.
Yep, they're up to something.
Immediately.
I agree.
When you see a group of kids walk into a grocery store, you don't have a right to be suspicious. And I know from my high school experiences, a lot of negative things happen when, alcohol is available in a grocery store for kids. So I'm gonna go ahead and go no with this one.
I'm with you.
Yep. All right. And I believe this one probably came out of COVID, the third-party delivery of alcohol beverages, because there for a while when the restaurants weren't open and nobody could come in, and you had, to deliver stuff, alcohol was one of those big players where, if you could get your alcohol delivered with your chicken, your fried chicken or your sub sandwich, you can get alcohol delivered with it. That became a big plus, and I think that they're just going to go ahead and make that available. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Darn, I'm out of beer. Why don't I, instead of going to the store and getting some, does that just show the laziness of the U.S. citizen that I can just have my beer delivered to me now? And
so I have a couple of arguments in favor of this one, and I'm leaning towards yes on this one. And one of them being, let's say you're having a party and you run out of alcohol. Well, chances are you've been drinking.
Everybody's been drinking. Yeah.
Everybody's been drinking. So if somebody's going to make a run, chances are that's a buzz driver, at least, maybe even a drunk driver on the streets. I also like this idea of helping small businesses, restaurants, brew pubs, have another market for their products. I know a lot of brew pubs brew their own beer and sell food. And so if they could also sell their beer along with food orders, or sell beer to their customers, that might be a nice revenue line for them. And I believe today you can deliver, except you have to be an employee of the company from which you're purchasing. This would basically take that load off. So we already have Uber Eats, we already have DoorDash, they're already going out and about. I think there's an economy of scale to be gained from them also being able to deliver the alcohol instead of having an employee take time aside to have to go drive it, which my guess is it's so expensive that it doesn't justify it, such that those businesses miss out on that opportunity.
Yep, I think that's an interesting idea, and I think that came out of COVID, because you could, people were were ordering, the Uber Eats and the DoorDashes and stuff, and they were getting their, even like a pizza place, they can start bringing beer along with pizza and stuff like that. So I'd probably vote yes on this one. It's just another revenue stream for the small brew pubs and even the small mom and pop restaurants to deliver alcohol along with the food. So,
and again, the consumer willingly orders it, so
correct.
That means that there's a value to them that saves them effort from having to, either. And we also have to, think about people who maybe carrying all that beer is hard, right? Let's say you're a mother with a child and you want to go purchase something. Well, it's like now carrying wine bottles and carrying cases of beer is actually quite heavy and cumbersome too.
So I look at this and I see something else. What happens and who holds liability, and I see a huge problem going to hit the courts. Uber driver A picks up an order from restaurant A, and it's got a few highballs in it and some whiskey and whatever. And he gets down about 3 blocks and gets in an accident. And then we find out that he's got maybe then that requires all Uber drivers or anybody used for delivery services to be a minimum of 21 years of age. And is it going to require that they are an authorized sales agent, because right now when things get handed off, the liability doesn't pass at this point, or it passes, excuse me, because the people don't know. But I see a big problem with peripheral issues, legal issues that are going to come to pass. I also see 18, 19, 20-year-old college kids that aren't going to be able to deliver food anymore to make money. Not that necessarily that's a big deal, but I just, God almighty, I mean, it's like we got to get out of this COVID type scenario where we just order everything to the house. Eventually go out and talk to people. I don't know. I mean, go out and go somewhere, but I just see a legality thing coming up that is just going to be horrid. A liability thing coming up that's going to be horrid for a business owner, and there's going to be shields that'll get pierced that wouldn't get pierced. I just, how do you know? One of them is a restaurant and bar owner has the fiduciary responsibility to deny service to someone that has already apparently had a number of cocktails or is enumerated. How do they judge that when they get, if it's going to be another order is going to be delivered? Mm-hmm. I mean, I just see a lot of legal things that this can set up like almost like a snowball rolling downhill.
Yeah, I guess one question, clarifying question here, and that's a great point, Steve. I never thought about the refusal, right? Like there's a degree of responsibility on the server to refuse alcohol somebody who's not in a good state. Yeah. And that might not even just be, signs of being overly drunk. That could also just be signs of aggression or violence or other situations like that. Question to you guys, do you see anything here that says that the order would be placed with the business still? but it would just be the delivery of that, the execution of the delivery, that would be a third party? Or do you think that this opens up third party, almost like intermediaries or brokers for taking orders?
I don't know. I see many things that could happen, Darko. I just maybe I'm looking too deep into it. Yeah.
This has just delivery. So like, you know, what I wonder is like, and again, this lack of knowledge on my side, but if it's an issue of placement, to me, that's a much bigger issue. So if let's say I open up a third party and you can order beer and wine with me, right? And then now, who knows that I'm going to be doing a good job of verifying age and things like that.
Exactly. I agree.
Versus if it's strictly that the business who has a liquor license is the one that has to take the order, and it's their responsibility to review the ID provided by the person who submitted the order, then I'm a little more lenient, because if it's just a matter of delivery, then you just need to make sure you get that same ID that was used to place the order. And to me, it's a little bit of a better safeguard.
Yeah, it does say there, all individuals who deliver through a third-party delivery company are required to be 21 years of age or older, complete a certification program, verify the recipient's legal age at the time of delivery, and refuse delivery to anyone who fails to provide proof of age or appears intoxicated.
Right, which is a passing of responsibility, of liability,
right.
To the delivery people.
Yep, and it says measures they would make the third-party delivery companies and their workers liable for alcohol delivery violations and remove the liquor license.
So if it's a third-party delivery service delivering for a licensed business, a liquor licensed business, so if we slow down and read it, a yes vote on Proposition 126 allows third-party companies to deliver alcohol from grocery stores, convenience stores, liquor stores, bars, restaurants, and other liquor licensed businesses, and makes takeout and delivery of all alcohol from bars and restaurants permanently available. But it doesn't talk about where liability starts and where liability ends, or who's liable.
That's a little bit on the next page, I believe, Steve, on page 52.
Yeah, it's just on the next page over.
It goes into a little more detail there.
Oops.
So they're going to have a double? Yeah.
Right in the middle, this major outlines requirements for alcohol delivery companies. But the thing is appears intoxicated. Well, maybe my definition of appears intoxicated is different than somebody else's.
And there's a big difference that when you're standing behind the bar and somebody's in your business and they appear intoxicated versus you get to their house and they appear intoxicated. I have a hard time imagining somebody refusing to sell to somebody in their own home.
Yeah.
Because I have a hard time imagining that.
Yeah, you're in your own house, and you can do that in your own house. You can drink as much as you want in your own house.
And you're at the door. You didn't see the person walking. You didn't see him talking. You didn't see anything what's going on behind the scenes.
Right. Yeah, I think that could be rewritten a little better or something like that. But yeah,
I also go back to, man, if that person really wanted this alcohol and this law prevented them from hopping in their car, gosh, it might be a net gain there. It might be a net benefit to reduce drunk driving.
Yep.
Maybe. I think it looks more like, when I read that whole thing of what does this measure do, it looks like another revenue source for the state being set up.
Could be.
By all the fees, permits, testing, certifications. Boy, this is going to be a legal nightmare. It almost reads The measure also makes third-party delivery companies and workers liable for alcohol delivery violations, removes retail liquor licensees' liability once alcohol is transferred to the third party. Boy,
Yep. It's a
This
legal.
one- it's a mess.
Yeah.
It's a legal mess.
That might be, unfortunately, something that has to be explored. Something you're going to have to run it through, see if it works, see what it doesn't work, and
Yeah.
go from there. Throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. And if it doesn't stick, then you get rid of it. So,
Yeah.
and I think it's,
Yeah.
overall, I think it's probably a good idea. Gives another revenue stream for, I just think of the little pizza place down here, and they sell alcohol, and it would be, order pizza and 2 beers, and you're good to go. So
Yeah.
you get it all delivered at once. So, all right. Is that a yes from everybody on that one, or yes, no, yes, maybe so, kind of, not
Maybe
really,
so. Maybe so. I
but
mean,
not really.
I'm leaning yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd like to lean yes if I could, but I just have this stumble on the legality.
Yeah.
On all of the liability, legality. So,
Cool. Well, gentlemen, thank you for your time. This has been a great overview, and hopefully the audience finds it informative. And
Yep. People can, get some more information, and
yeah,
not necessarily try to read through that jargon in there that's can be difficult to understand sometimes. And
difficult
hopefully
at best.
Yeah,
drop
at
us
best.
a comment if you think that we misunderstood any of these. We'd love
Oh,
to
yeah.
hear the comments and see
Oh,
if there's
yeah.
anything we missed.
Yeah, drop those in there and say that Steve and Darko are always wrong, and I'm always right, and I'm always right. So I know what's
That's
going
why
on.
you have us. That's why you have us here, right?
Exactly.
See, I was right once.
Yep. So, all right. So with that, do thank everybody. Thank you guys for participating, and we'll see how this comes out.
All right.
Thank you
All
guys.
righty. Thanks.
Sounds good. Good to see
All
you
right.
guys.
Yeah, you too. Right.
Bye-bye.
Right.